All right, let's welcome into Straight Fire a special guest. Oh my gosh, big time former college basketball player, coach. It's funny. I enjoyed playing a men's league out here, and there was this lefty who was just torching everyone. And I'm like, who is this guy? I got to guard him. And of course, he lit me up because I'm old and he's young. And then I ask him who he is, and he tells me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, your dad was a freaking basketball coach, Mark Gottfried. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing great. And just so we set the record straight, Cameron, my son, he's still the second best shooter in this family. He's behind another guy in this family, just so we get to set the record straight.
Yes, I'm sure he'll love to hear that. You hit, it looks like, what is it, 7 or 8 threes in a single game against Vanderbilt?
Quit counting. There were so many. I quit counting.
Love it, love it. I want to start obviously with your background. Obviously you played at Oral Roberts and you were a superstar. Then you transferred to Alabama, and you made some Sweet 16 runs with Wimp Sanderson as the head coach. I mean, listen, people love these turn back the clock stories as we get into March. What do you remember from the March days of the madness?
First of all, I always tell people that it's the greatest show on earth, March Madness and the tournament. And, we were able to have really good teams. I had three straight Sweet 16 teams. My last year, 87, was the first year of the three-point line. So for 2 years in my college, we played without it. But in that year, we're a two seed and we're really good. We won the SEC regular season and the SEC tournament, double champion. But we end up playing against Rick Pitino's Providence Friars with Billy Donovan and
Donovan,
Delray
yes.
Brooks. Played them in the old Freedom Hall in Louisville, and they got us pretty good. And that was probably one of the most disappointing basketball days we've ever had, or I've ever had, because we thought we had a good chance to make a run and get to the Final Four and all that kind of stuff. But I had great players I played with, great teams. Wimp Sanders was a great coach, so I was real lucky. It was really a wonderful time.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the box score in that game. This doesn't feel real, but Billy Donovan's team hit 14 of 20 from three,
It
70%.
It was nuts. It was nuts. And you know what happened, J Mac? They were for 1 year, and this is where my respect for Rick Pitino began because back then you got to remember he was still an unknown guy. He was
Yeah.
young, but they adapted and made the 3-point shot part of their offense where
Mm.
most people, it was so new, they didn't really understand really how to utilize that. And he did. And he had some good shooters, obviously. He had a big kid named Marty Conlon that was really good, Delray Brooks, but Billy
Mhm.
Donovan was such a good college basketball player. But they took advantage and understood how to utilize the 3-point line, I think, before anybody else did.
Yeah, they beat a good Georgetown team that was a number one seed with Reggie Williams, Reggie in the rotations.
Mhm.
And then they lost to Syracuse. I guess that was that the Ronnie Cycli team? I mean,
Mhm.
listen, 80s college basketball was amazing.
It was fun in our league at the time, the SEC. We felt like when you go to Florida, you're playing against. I got to guard Mad Max, Vernon Maxwell,
Oh,
and
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Andrew Moten. Kentucky has got Kenny Skywalker and Winston Bennett and all these good players. And LSU was loaded with some dudes. I mean, the league was really good. It still is, obviously. It's a great league. But I'm gonna tell you, for a player, it was a lot of fun to play in that league in that era. Plus, we had colorful coaches. Wimp Sanderson, we had
Mhm.
Hugh Durham, you had Sonny Smith, you had Norm Sloan, Dale Brown, you had all these colorful, amazing guys too. So that was it made it a lot of fun too.
So now it looks like you played high school ball in Illinois, but then once you went down to Alabama, I'm assuming you loved it down there, enjoyed the South.
Yeah, my dad was a coach, a small college coach, and then he became the athletic director at the University of South Alabama. So we moved to Alabama. Jay, I didn't know a human being. None of us did in the state of Alabama, and it was actually a lot of fun. I went to an all boys private school. We were really good. We had a good basketball team, but it ended up being a great experience for me and my family to, kind of be transplanted Southerners, and it worked out really well for us.
Yeah. So you finish your career. Were you in one shining moment ever? Do you recall?
You know what? You brought up a sad memory because in 87, if you go back and find the one shining moment in 87, there's this clip, and it's actually in Freedom Hall. We're playing against Providence, and I come out of the game, and I hate to admit it, I hate to say this out loud, but I got the towel in my head, and there's tears in my eyes.
Oh
And so
man.
we're on the other side of the one shining moment, but I did make it in there as a player.
Dude, I mean, listen, man, that's the kind of thing I would record that every year and I would like watch it occasionally. This is before YouTube. And my wife's like, a girlfriend at the time was like, what's wrong with you? Why do you like this so much? I'm like, because the season's over. Like these guys' careers are over. A lot of these, what, 90%, 95% of NCAA tournament guys don't go to play pros in the NBA and they have amazing careers. So do you recall like that moment and what happened afterward?
I could recall them all, J Mac. I'm very lucky. I've been in 22 NCAA tournaments and a lot of them as a coach, but even those as a player, the excitement that you had, I always tell people too, like the days leading up, like right now, like today, the days leading up, or if you advance and get to the second round in the Sweet 16, you get to come home for a couple of days. Your campus is buzzing. Everybody's excited because you're still alive. You made it through that first weekend. Those are things you remember too, on top of the games. Obviously we had great games. When I was a junior at Alabama, we played NC State. This would have been, or maybe it was my sophomore year, but we had to play them in the old McNichols Arena in Denver. And all I can remember about that one was it was about 10 seconds to go in the half, and we're on defense. And I'm guarding this little munchkin named Spud
But
Webb.
Webb,
And
yes.
I just remember turning around and he was near the top of the key. And all of a sudden I realized they were in a 1-4 flat. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to guard this little this little speedster? And he blew right by me. But they knocked us out that year. Let's see, Kentucky knocked us out one year. We had to play them in the Sweet 16. Anyway, three straight Sweet 16. We just couldn't get past it as a player.
So your career ends. Did you think, hey, my dad was a coach. I kind of want to be a coach. Did you know that at the time or not really?
I felt like I wanted to coach, but I still wanted to play a little bit. And,
Mhm.
I got drafted, obviously, Detroit Pistons, and that was in the bad boy era. I got cut. I played with Athletes in Action for a year. It's a Christian team, went all over the world. And then
Mm.
I got invited back to Detroit. They signed me for the Summer League, and it's a great story. I was playing back then. The Summer League was in LA at LMU. It wasn't in
Oh,
Vegas.
yeah.
And I'm playing for Detroit. And we got Dennis Rodman. He's a young guy on the team, and a guy from Wyoming named Finis Denbo. And
Yeah.
we had some good players. And anyway, during that process, the ball started getting rolling to where I wanted to coach. And Jim Herrick had just got the job at UCLA.
Mhm.
And he called my mom or my house back in Alabama. And my mom calls me, and on the phone in the hotel at the LAX Marriott Marquis right there, my red light is blinking, no cell phones.
Yeah.
And she says, yeah, this guy named Jim Herrick is trying to reach you. So in the morning, I got up, I got a taxi cab, I took off, went to UCLA, and we met. And he was like, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm playing here at LA. I'm actually, down by the airport. And the ball got to roll in there as far as coaching. And that's really when I got excited about it.
Mhm.
And, you get a chance to start at UCLA. I mean, come on,
Oh,
that was a
jeez.
break of a lifetime for me. And so it ended up being really wonderful.
Yeah. So you get to Murray State, and I don't know how many people remember Murray State, the Racers, but as a 15 seed, you push Duke, and you guys lose by 3. I'm assuming after that your phone's ringing off the hook.
That year was my second year at Murray State,
Yeah.
and we were up 6, by the way, at the half, and playing pretty well. And I had a nice little team. And they made a stretch. Trajan Langdon hit a couple of jumpers on us, and they had a nice team. They were a good team. It wasn't one of their great teams, but they were
Right.
good. And it came right down to the wire, and they score and go up 2 with about 7 or 8 seconds to go, and we got it. We have a chance, to at least tie to go overtime. But that year, when the game ends, I was offered both the Georgia and the Tennessee job
Wow.
and turned them both down at Murray State because I felt like a year at some point I thought Alabama's job was going to open up. And having
Mm.
played at Alabama, that was my alma mater, and that's kind of where I wanted to be, and it worked out for me.
I'm sure I don't know if you had family at the time, but turning down Georgia and Tennessee for Murray State, did people think you were crazy?
I'll tell you what happened. And both guys, well, really the guy at Tennessee really kind of frustrated me. The athletic director was an old football guy named Doug Dickey.
Okay.
And I was very loyal to Jim Herrick. Jim Herrick had given me an opportunity at UCLA. He promoted me 3 times in 7 years as an assistant coach. And then we won the national championship together. And then Jim had some NCAA issues there way
Hmm.
back when, and I can remember Doug Dickey saying, Mark, if you decide to come to Tennessee, I really want you to distance yourself from him. And I said, I'm not doing that. I'm just not going to do that. And it really kind of got me to a place where I said, I don't know if I really want to work for somebody because I've always felt like you're loyal to the people who help you. And he helped
Mm.
me. He gave me a chance. And last thing I was going to do is turn my back on him. So anyway, it worked out. I ended up at Alabama, and I had a great 11 years there, and very thankful for those.
So then you end up a year later going back to the tournament, and at that point, I guess the Alabama job came open, right?
It did. And that year, J Mac, how about this? At Murray State, we were 29-3. We had beaten Arkansas, beat Iowa State.
Wow.
We went on the road and beat Dayton back then.
Who was your
Oliver
best
Fred was
guy?
the coach. I had some guys you would never heard of. I had two
Okay.
guys from Trinidad. I had a couple young kids. I had the Mr. Basketball out of the state of Alabama named Isaac Spencer, and
But no
you know,
pros.
no pros, and
Wow.
but just some tough, hard-nosed guys. And we had a great year. Like I said, had great wins. Went I think 16-2 in the league that year in the
Yep.
OVC way back then. But on the selection show Sunday, which we just kind of witnessed, we watch our name pop up on the screen, and it's Murray State playing Rhode Island, and Rhode Island is coached by Jim Herrick. And
Oh, no
they had a
way.
team with Catino Mobley,
Yes.
Tyson
Tyson
Wheeler.
Wheeler.
They had some dudes now, and Jim probably knew our team better than, as outside of myself and my coaches, probably better than anybody in the country. But they were really good too. And people forget that Rhode Island team beat Kansas in the second round,
Yes.
beat Stanford, beat
Stanford.
Valparaiso in the third, and took Stanford to the wire and were actually up six with about a minute to go in the game and got beat. So
Yeah.
he almost had Rhode Island in the Final Four. So we got beat by a really good Rhode Island basketball team that year.
That was the Mark Madsen Stanford team, I think.
Mark
And Arthur
Madison
Lee.
and Arthur Lee with the
Yeah,
big
yeah.
steal. They're
Oh
late.
my
And,
gosh. So wait, let me
uh,
ask, what were you running at Murray State? Like 29-4, you got a 9 seed. That's ridiculous that almost never happens. What kind of sets and offense were you running? Was it the
we
Jim Herrick
wanted to
stuff?
run. We were up and down, man. We were playing in the 80s and 90s, and that was the highest seed. I think it still is in the Ohio Valley Conference, which in that league, you're always a 15 seed or a
Yeah.
16 seed. But we had a good team with good wins. And so, I think we were viewed just a little bit differently. I think if we had played anybody other than Rhode Island, we had a chance at least to, maybe win some games and get going there in the tournament. We were a pretty good team then.
Do you think they pitted you against Herrick, obviously for the storyline, like teacher versus student or whatever, you know?
I sat a couple times in some mock drafts with the selection committee when I was on the NABC, our basketball coaches
Oh yeah.
board of directors, and I really think it's pretty pure. I really do. But I say that, but we see them all the time,
Yeah.
And so on one hand, it's like, okay, is that just kind of happenstance? I don't
Mm.
know, but it does add for another element for television and games and things for people to talk about. And so sometimes I think it's easy to move teams. They never want to move teams up or down, like from a 9 seed to an 8 to a 7. But
Mm.
if you move them across the line where you keep a team as a 9 seed, but you give them a different matchup, I do think that probably happens
Yeah.
sometimes here and there. Yeah.
So you get this, you go to Alabama with the prodigal son returns, our superstar from a few years back. And it takes a little while, but once you get going, man, you guys were rolling around like 2002, maybe?
We had a great run, had five straight tournaments, got into the Elite Eight in
Oh,
2004. We won the league in 2002. I had a great player in Mo Williams, who was
oh yeah.
the national freshman of the year. He was the best high school guard in the country.
How did
I
you
had
land
this
him, by the
little,
way?
what's that?
How did you land Mo Williams?
I recruited Mo since he was in the ninth grade, and
Wow.
we developed a great relationship. He could have went anywhere in the country, and Jackson, Mississippi is only about 2.5 hours to Tuscaloosa, so we were right there. But Mo was such a good player, and then I had this little bitty guard that I started. He came as a walk on. I gave him a scholarship. Antoine Petway, who just led
Petway.
Kennesaw State into the NCAA basketball
Wow.
tournament, and so. Pet was a good little guard, but I had a nice team. And, that particular year in 2004, let's go to that year. We go in as an 8-9 seed in the tournament. I tell people all the time, J-Mag, the 8-9, when you're in the 8-9 bracket, that's like the booby prize game. I tell everybody, you're invited to the party, but you're probably not going to stay very long because your next game is usually against a 1 seed. And
Yeah.
so our next game was against Stanford. They were 30-1, and they were good. They had a really good team. They were the number 1 team in the nation, and we got by them. And then we had to play Syracuse, who was the defending champs. They had everybody back except Carmelo,
Carmelo, yeah.
and beat them. And then we ran into a dominant UConn team back in '04, and that team, they had Okafor and Josh Boone and Villanueva and the heck of the really good guard. I can't remember his name. I'm looking right at him. Ben
Khalid,
Gordon and
was
Talik
it Khalid?
Brown.
Yes.
I mean, they
Oh
were
no,
they
it
were
wasn't Khalid El-Amin. You're right. Talik Brown was the point
Talik
guard. Yeah.
Brown and Rashard Anderson was a good player for him, but
Man.
Ben Gordon was a load as a guard. And then those big guys, they just they just wore you down. They had so many, and Jim Calhoun. They were good. They won it all that year. But
That's right.
for us to get to an Elite Eight at Alabama, that had never happened in school history, and so that was a lot of fun. And anyway, we had a great run there at Alabama. It was a lot of fun.
So I think what a lot of people are listening and hearing, my gosh, how did this guy win so much so fast everywhere he goes? And I know you say run and gun, but there's got to be another secret sauce that you're not revealing. Like anybody can run and gun.
Well, when I was at UCLA, with Jim Herrig, and Jim Herrig, those of us that really know him well, he's a believer. When I say believer, I mean a believer in the old UCLA John Wooden high post offense. Now, throughout the years and the games changed a little bit in the 3-point line and some of those things. And so, you had to tweak it a little bit here and there, but a lot of it was the same stuff. And in that particular offense, I could take any player. If my best player was a guard, I could make him shine like crazy. If the best player was a forward, best player was the big. It didn't really matter. And so I ran that offense my entire career. And, as we always say, it's not the only offense in the world. It's just the best. And and John Wooden won 10 national champs with it. So there were a lot of times when we would all say, well, who am I to question it? Now, he had a few good players too back then, but that's what we did. And I had good assistants. And then also you got to, I don't care who you are, you got to get good players. And we were able to always find a way to get some really good players.
So what's the profile of the player you look for? I mean, I guess it depends on where you're coaching, but for instance, you identified the Martin twins at NC State, Caleb and Cody. Now were they at Nevada before you or after you?
After. They were 2 years at NC State with us.
And so what is it? Because they're kind of just dogged. They are relentless. Their motor's tireless. Is there like a DNA that you look for in a player?
I don't know if there's a DNA, but for me, obviously want as much size and speed as you can. The bigger the player, the quicker they are in athleticism. But I've always had an affinity for guys that can shoot the ball, guys that can make shots. Some guys like the big, rough and tough defensive guys. Mick Cronin's that way at UCLA. He puts a high value in just beating you up defensively and playing a little bit slower. But for me, it's always been a premium on shooting. If guys can shoot the ball and make baskets, that to me, and I've always had guys that could score. TJ Warren at NC State could score in his sleep. When I was at UCLA, we had Don McLean as the leading scorer in the history of UCLA, more than Jabbar. Tracy Murray, those guys. And even at Alabama, I had guys that can really score the ball. And so for me, that was the premium. Because here's what I tell people all the time. There's this old catchy phrase, we've all heard it, defense wins championships. And I always say BS to that one, because you watch any game, watch them in the tournament, watch in the NBA. If you can't score late in the game, you can't win. You got to be able to keep scoring as the clock is winding down those last 2 or 3 minutes. So scoring to me, not that defense isn't important, but you got to be able to score the ball. So for me, that was I always put a premium on that.
Yeah. So the game obviously has evolved since you left coaching, and it's a little different. Obviously the NIL, the transfers, but the 3-pointer doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. And then you see a team like Arizona, who Mark, I believe, is bottom 10 in 3-point attempts in the country. And for my money, they're the best team in the land right now. I don't know if you'd agree, but do you like what they're doing? Because they're kind of zigging when everybody else is zagging.
A little bit. Now I'm a little different in that when I look at the bracket right now and the 4 number 1 seeds, they're the one to me that I'm not convinced they're going to get there. I think
Oh,
the other three 1 seeds, when you look at Duke, Michigan, and Florida, they all could get beat. I mean, anything can happen on a given night.
mhm.
But I think Arizona's bracket is a little bit loaded with Purdue, and I think with Arkansas a little bit, and maybe Gonzaga in there. I don't know if Gonzaga is good enough this year,
Yeah.
but it'll be interesting because teams that really understand how to utilize the three. Now, I will say this: Alabama, Nate Oates, a good friend of mine, he's done a phenomenal job there. They rely on the three so much. Now
Yeah.
he'll tell you, yeah, against a certain team, we got 60 points in the paint, blah blah blah. But if you can take away their three ball, which Ole Miss did in the SEC tournament, they'll struggle to beat you. So maybe with Arizona, the way they're playing, a little bit old school basketball. Maybe we'll see and we'll find out if that'll carry them all the way through a 6-game season because you got to win 6 to win it
Mhm.
all, and we'll see how that plays out.
I kind of look for trends, and one of the numbers that jumps out is this offensive rebounding this year. It's kind of insane. So all 4 of the number 1 seeds are top 25 in offensive rebounding this year. And you just look at it, you're like, well, okay, Arizona, even if they miss, they've got like an NBA size front line. Florida has 3 like giants inside. Duke, obviously, they don't have it now with the center out, but the 4 number 1s size is, I mean, Illinois has a huge front line for Underwood. Do you think and we see the Houston Rockets are trying this in the league. Obviously, the Adams injury hurts, but it's like, hey, if we take more shots than you because we grab more offensive rebounds, we're going to beat you.
And you got to remember, people really practice that. They'll practice sending 4 guys to the glass,
Yeah.
with 1 safety, and it just becomes part of their DNA where, ball goes up, shot goes up. It's 4 guys typically that are just hunting the ball. They're just going to hunt for the ball every single time. And then also remember this, and maybe not in the case of Arizona, but, long shot produces a long rebound. So a lot of teams
Yeah.
that are shooting a lot of threes, a lot of those balls are coming off the rim a little bit farther. So your free throw line area, your short corners, your wings, there's a lot of balls coming off the rim that aren't necessarily just right around the rim. And so those teams have all done a good job with it. But like anything, like I was talking about, more opportunities that we get to score the ball,
Yeah.
I think the better chances that you have.
Where are you on this Arkansas kid, Darius Acuff, who is just a blur? The 3-pointers are insane. He could do everything. And we saw Kemba Walker lead UConn to a title, Carmelo Anthony, dating myself, but Danny Manning and the Miracles. I don't know if he could pull off something like that, but for a 6'3" guard, it might be tough. Just your thoughts on Acuff, who is a shot maker.
So I think probably a month ago, it was pretty determined. There was probably 3 or 4 guys that most guys in the NBA would say, okay, these guys are going 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mhm.
You got the kid at North Carolina, DeBonsa at BYU. You got the kid at Kansas. There's another one I'm forgetting.
Boozer,
Boozer. And then maybe the guard at Houston would be right there.
Flemings. Yep. Yep.
But I would say in the last 2 to 3 weeks here, 4 weeks, I think you're watching that little guy in Arkansas just climb the ladder. He just keeps climbing the ladder up. I don't know if he would end up being number 1, but I think he's going to surprise some people and be up there maybe number 2, 3, or 4 in the draft.
Yeah.
And a lot will determine too in this tournament because, at the end of the day, can he carry a team? Now, their talent is actually pretty good at Arkansas. He gets a lot of attention, but the guys around him pretty good, by the way. But for them to go through and win the SEC tournament, and him to do what he's been doing, he's a load now. He is a load, and I don't know if he's Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose, I think, was maybe a little more athletic, maybe
Yeah.
got up off the ground a little bit more than him. But again, his ability to put the ball in the basket on a number of different ways. I mean, a number of different ways. And he is not afraid, period. He ain't afraid to take the last shot, biggest shot. If he misses one, he's got no problem taking another one. So, boy, he's rising the charts pretty high for me.
A quick question on Darryn Peterson. I don't know, like, if you're plugged in at Kansas with Bill Self. We had Fran Fraschilla on, and I was asking him. It sounds like, this Darryn Peterson thing, people were getting in his ear, maybe in his camp, thinking NBA, and hey, let's slow it down. Have you ever witnessed anything like that? Someone who's so ridiculously talented, but I don't know if the word is dog in him, but it just didn't seem like for much of the season he was willing to go full tilt.
Yeah, I spent a year with the Mavericks, and we had all these discussions. That was the year we drafted Luka and Jalen Brunson. So a lot of times when we discuss players, you got analytic guys in there talking about all this analytic stuff. And for me as a coach, it's, can he help me win? That's all I care about. Is this guy going to help us win the game? For me, there's some question marks about him. Now, I will say this. Bill Self, who's a good friend of mine, Bill is the master of publicly, he's probably not going to be as honest as we would all want him to be with his star player. Maybe how frustrating that has been for their team this year. Because I can promise you, when they signed him and got him there and got him on campus with some other guys they have this year on that team, I don't think they were thinking about being a 4 seed. They were talking about being a 1-2 seed and really having a chance to make a run at it. And they still might. They might, because Bill is really, really good. But I think there's some questions around him. He may still go really high. He's very, very talented. But boy, to invest a lot of money into him, I'd be nervous right now.
Wait a minute. I was looking into your bio. This is the first I've heard of this Dallas Mavericks stuff. So I don't see it on there. Were you there when Dennis Smith was there?
So they brought me on right before the draft, and then we signed Dennis that year. And then, because Dennis played for me at NC State for a year. Then the following year was the year of Marvin Bagley, Mo Bamba, DeAndre Ayton, Luka Dončić, Trae Young, and Donnie Nelson pulled off the coup of all coups, in my view. I did like Trae Young a lot, but to orchestrate a trade with Atlanta and get Luka, give up Trae, and get a draft pick from Atlanta, that was pretty genius move on my part, from my perspective.
Yeah, but certainly. The reason I ask about Dennis Smith, how do I say this delicate? Obviously, he's ridiculously talented. But the stories I heard about him in Dallas when Luka showed up, it was pretty clear, hey, this is Luka's team. And, maybe Dennis Smith didn't take it great. The guy was a dunking machine, super athletic. But, Luka Dončić is like a transcendent player. Was that awkward being there? Or if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to.
No, I'm fine. Here's the thing. I love Dennis. I love him to this day. And I always say this, some guys that are pros, and I've had some guys stay in the league a long time that I coached, you also have to learn how to be a pro, and you have to learn how to stay in the league. And because everything changes sometimes every year, whether you draft a Luka, and by the way, also Jalen Brunson in that draft, both those guys. And, it was for a year, it was kind of okay, but then, they kind of made their decision. And so I feel for Dennis. I want him. I'm hoping for him to get back in the league. I root for him all the time. He's in the G League right now. But, we all loved Jalen Brunson too. I loved Jalen in college. I didn't think he was going to be this good now.
No, I don't think anyone did.
And Jay, and I've had Jay Wright on my podcast. Jay and I talk all the time. And Jay will admit publicly he didn't see it coming either. Now, he was really good. But in that draft, to get Jalen as a second rounder, and then Luka, obviously, in a trade that was a predetermined trade, that ended up being quite a feather in the cap, in my view, for Donnie Nelson before all that happened and he left the Mavericks.
Not to go too down the Mavs rabbit hole, but you were around Luka Dončić. I'm in awe of the talent, and I also am in awe that the media continues to beat this guy up. I don't know if it's because he was so good so soon, those series against the Mavs where it was 1-5. But what do you make of all this? They bash him. Oh, he doesn't dunk anymore. He's out of shape. He doesn't play defense. He's overweight. Are you surprised, or is this simply, hey, you get to the mountaintop and all it is people just firing at you.
I think some of it is valid. I do. I think he's a phenomenal player. Now, I would tell you right now, he would be in my discussion. I don't think he wins the MVP this year, but he's in the discussion. Okay, so you're talking about an elite level of guy right there. Obviously Wemby in San Antonio, and you still got the Joker, and you got Shea, and maybe Cade Cunningham. His emergence has been unreal. But Luka's in the conversation. He's there. Now, here's also what I would say. And obviously I'm just a guy sitting in my living room right now, but if Luka ever truly fell in love with getting his body completely, I'm talking about completely. In other words, when you go back and look at some of the great ones, you go back and look at Jordan and Kobe and even LeBron. LeBron was 25-ish. You're talking about physically maxing out what your body should be like. You're talking about speed, your weight, your quickness, your lateral quickness, your jumping, your conditioning, your stamina. And for me, Luka took a massive jump from last year to this year. Massive jump in that category. And if he just can take it one more step, just one more, and get his body truly, truly there, I think then he is, arguably he's there. He's there. He's there. Now, obviously, we got Wemby sitting over here in San Antonio. That's a whole nother ball game. But Luka, for him to max out, in my view, that's the next step for him. But he's so good. He's so talented. And the shot he made against the Nuggets, the game winner, and more of those are to come with him. But he's quite a player.
Let me ask you real quick to go back to college and Duke. Boozer is not the athlete Cooper Flagg was or Zion Williamson, but some of the analytics say he has had a better freshman year than both those guys. It's tough. And then you watch him, and next thing you know, he's got 23, 10, and 5. I know people don't like when I mention Jokic, but like Jokic at like 20 years old, Boozer's going to be better. He's 18 and a half, Mark. There isn't anything he cannot do. The vision, the IQ, the passing. What do you think the ceiling is for a guy like this?
Did you just say he's going to be better than Jokic?
Well, at 20, Jokic at 20, Jokic at 20, Jokic at 27 is a different story.
Well, hold on. Jokic at 8 looked like the Pillsbury Doughboy when he was a little munchkin. So
he's still a little doughy.
I like Boozer a lot. I really do. I have some questions about his athleticism. I do like his numbers. I love the way that they play and they use him. I think John Shire has done a just off the charts job at Duke. But to me, I think those other guys are a little bit more ahead of him, especially the kid at BYU. And I'm not so sure that the kid at North Carolina doesn't end up being a big time pro, maybe a better pro. But I do like Boozer. I mean, this is a great draft class, by the way. Yeah. I mean, your first probably 6 picks in that draft, you could put them all in a hopper and close your eyes and pull guys, It's that close, I think. And the only person who will end up having pressure is whoever ends up with the number 1 pick. Because when you got the number 1 pick, you better get it right. Yeah. If you're 2 through 6, you're going to end up with a great player.
Great player. No, you're right. That's spot on. I wonder, the shot creation thing is why a lot of people like DeBonsa and Acuff and even Darryn Peterson. Mm-hmm. But so you think there's a chance Boozer falls below Caleb Wilson, the kid with the broken hand at UNC?
Well, I was on the phone the other day with a couple guys that are scouts still in the NBA, and they asked me that question: who would you take between the two? And I answered it this way: did you watch the game in the Dean Dome when they played against each other? And they played in the same game, and I thought Caleb was just he's a guy for me that I think they're all of them have great upside. I like his upside maybe the most out of all of them, and where he might be coming 3 or 4 or 5 years. But like we mentioned earlier, I think Acuff at Arkansas is climbing. He is climbing rapidly through the charts right now.
I just wonder some of this, like identifying franchise players, like, you were part of that Luka Trae Young deal. Everybody thought for a few years Trae Young would be the guy. Remember that series against the Knicks where he took a bow at midcourt? Like Trae Young was just traded for like a bag of basketballs, He
was. And I can remember this too, G. I went to a game at Oklahoma his freshman year, and they played Baylor. and he gets 44 and 15 with he was on a bad team at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And, if his other guys on his team could have made a layup, he probably has 50 and 20 assists. And I remember, calling some guys back in Dallas and Michael Finley. And, I'm saying I've been around college basketball and I've watched a lot of college basketball in my lifetime. I don't know how many times I've watched a freshman in a Big 12 game now get 44 and 15. I mean, he was that good. And so I would always tell people, I'm not sure he might. Now, I never put my eyes on Luka in person, only by tape. But if you take Luka out of that draft, I was kind of saying, let's consider Trey 1, 2, 3. I thought he was right there, right there. And so hopefully he can do well in Washington and maybe, get going. And if AD can get healthy and stay healthy, maybe they can start winning a little bit there. But I always liked him. But Luka's
head and
a
shoulders.
generational guy.
So, that's the thing. Trae Young put up monster stats, couldn't get out of the first round. Like Steph Curry, monster stats at Davidson, makes a run to the Elite Eight. Like I always was like, no way can Trae Young be Steph Curry. No way. And people thought like, oh, he's the next Curry. And I don't know, man. He's not even 30 years old. And it feels like.
I agree, Jay. And I used to say that even in our meetings in Dallas, like, are we watching another Steph Curry come? Are we watching that a little bit for a guy that can do what he does? And, sometimes you have to remember too in the tournament, sometimes it's matchups.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's coaches. Sometimes a team, a high seed gets beat and all of a sudden you can advance through the tournament playing against lower seeds because other high seeds have gotten upset. The tournament is such it's kind of a fickle deal. Gonzaga's had a couple runs where all of a sudden all the high seeds are out of the way and they're playing lower seeds to advance. And so many things happen. So I don't put that much stock in the tournament. I mean, I do, and who can carry their team to get there. But also you got to remember players are playing in different systems they're not going to be playing in those same systems in the NBA. It's going to be much different. And the game is much different. And so it's not an easy science to pick sometimes the difference in you're splicing hairs between 2 and 3 and 1. And, we can all act like we knew, but really we all don't know. It's tough to do sometimes.
No, yeah, nobody knows. I mean, heck, Devin Booker was slowed by Calipari. Tyrese Maxey was slowed by Calipari. I mean, nobody knew those guys were going to pop and be all NBA and MVPs. SGA who thought SGA was going to be an MVP? Like
nobody.
Yeah. Nobody. So anyways, so your picks sounds like you're a little lower on Arizona. You got Duke, Michigan, and Florida. Who do you have winning it all?
I've been telling everybody I like Michigan. I do. I like the kid. I always can't ever pronounce his name right. But anyway, he's the MVP of the league. He's phenomenal, the forward. And I think the big kid Mara helps him a lot. I mean, he's not a great player, but in college basketball, he's different. He's just different. And you get into the tournament and you haven't seen a guy like him. We've not played against a guy that, is that tall and on pick and rolls when he's diving and they're throwing the ball up to the rim. So I think Michigan, to me, is the team. If I had to just circle one on my bracket, it probably at this point would be the Wolverines.
So I know you hear a lot of stories. Obviously, I'm sure like many you can't repeat. The most fun story I heard about Mara. So he was at UCLA. And the story I heard was he told Mick, I'm good. I'm going back to Spain for the summer. I'll see you when I'm back. And apparently he comes back and he's like, I'm out. I'm going to Michigan. Now, listen, I'm sure crazy stuff happens. Obviously, they could use him, UCLA, with the big loss of Billabau. I don't know when he's coming back, the big guy. But have you heard any crazy tales about NIL and transfer? Because it does seem a little dirty out there.
NIL stands for now it's legal. That's the first thing. But, there's always crazy. Us coaches, we joke all the time. We could all write a book on just recruiting. And I think people would say, that didn't happen. Come on, man. That's not really true. Like, nobody would believe the stories. It's so competitive. It never ends. If you can get to somebody that can get to somebody who knows somebody that can get to the player or the family or whoever it may be, you never know how it's going to turn out. I was really disappointed. You know, I'm still a Bruin at heart too, you know, having won a national
Yeah.
championship there in 94. I was so uh yeah, I just hated it when he left. I loved him for 2 years. I thought he was going to be really, really good this year for UCLA. And but you know, now in the day with the portal, guys can transfer left and right. It'd be like pro sports, and every single player is a free agent every year. Yeah, it's hard to tell, and it's crazy as far as who's going to stay, who's going to leave. What do you got to
Mhm.
pay a guy? This guy's telling some schools telling me they give me 1 million. Okay, I'm giving him 600. I mean, it's the wild, wild west right now, and
Yeah.
hopefully they can the NCAA. I don't know that they can, but hopefully they can find a way to put some parameters around all this.
Yeah, it seems unlikely. All right, Mark Gottfried, legendary player at Alabama, college basketball coach, a ton of success. Thanks a lot, man, and enjoy the tournament.
You got it. Thank you for having me on. It was a lot of fun.